So just to do a little recap on where we are, and then sort of just plow ahead really. First I'm going to put a little paint on the chimneys. This is the inset piece that goes into the deck, and as I said to you, what I have decided to do is go ahead and finish this, or not necessarily finish it, but I should say get it painted before I install it into the recess here on the top of the deck. The reason being is because when I looked at the part, I realized that you know, it's going to be awkward if I'm trying to get an airbrush in there, and I certainly don't want to, at least on the initial paint job, I don't want to put a brush on it. So what I've done is I have primed this with some Stynores. This is the black Stynores. Now, if you're shooting your airbrush at about 20 psi, you shouldn't have any problems with this. And what I really like about the Stynores for this particular project, especially at this scale, is that it sucks into all the cracks and crevices, and it really gives quite a hard shell. And I've not had any issues with it, but I will say this: if you're trying to shoot it through an airbrush at anything less than 20 psi, it will dry on you pretty quickly. It washes up with water, or you can use the Vallejo cleaners, Stynores, which, you know, they have their own thinners and cleaners as well, but they're all pretty much interchangeable as long as it's water-based acrylic. So what I've done is, as I said, I've prepped this, and I'm going to shoot everything with the dark gray. There's two grays that it calls for, the darker gray and then the lighter gray. Now, I could not find the lighter gray in the Vallejo. I don't have any in stock. I mean, in the Tamiya, I didn't have any in stock, and I can't. I couldn't find it at my local hobby shop either. They seem to be out as well. I do know there was a weird kind of issue with Tamiya in the US. I don't know how true it is, but apparently a container freighter carrying a whole bunch of paint got hit by bad weather and sunk or something. I don't know how true that is, but everybody was saying, hey, be prepared, you know. So I went crazy and stocked up on a whole bunch of paint, but you know, the call out for this, for the light gray, I don't have, but I do have it in the Vallejo. So I'm going to go with these two colors, and again, these are your base coats. There's going to be a lot of weathering and other stuff going on, but to mix and match your Tamiyas and your Vallejos is fine. The only thing I would say to you is what you do have to be very careful of is that you really want to make sure that you give these a good coat of a matte varnish, and give it a day or two to dry and before you carry on, because they are susceptible to chipping, and when you're doing sub-assemblies like this, you've got to be super careful. But I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already know. So away we go here. I'm just going to shoot this for you, because what I'm trying to do with this particular build is really get into the sort of the nooks and crannies of how I go about it, and that should be enough. Okay, now I'm going to get a little bit of thinner, just a couple of drops, because it's warm here today. I'm in Southern California, and it's probably 78, 79 degrees today. I'm not showing off, I'm just telling you how it is. All right, so here's the dark gray, and so I'm gonna put this on. And what I really love about this black primer is that when you put down your next coat, in which case this is the gray, you get this amazing shadowing. Because you can't, obviously, I deliberately don't try to cover the sides of the grid lines inside this box, and you just get some wonderful pre-shading. So there you go, and that takes care of that. I don't want to go too heavy with that. Now, what I'm going to do with the chimneys is, I believe I believe that the shorter stack is in the darker color and the lighter stack is in the lighter color. At least that's what I've been led to believe by looking at some of the research and listening to some guys who are a little more canon than I am online. So that's the way I'm going, and if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But here we go, and I'm gonna just put light coats down, and as I said, I'm doing the whole thing, and then I'll come back and I'll pick out the lighter gray. And I'm gonna leave, I did get some black into the top of the chimneys, but I'm not gonna try and paint it. I'm gonna leave it because I think that's going to add just a really cool kind of effect. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to turn it upside down and obviously hit the bottom of it. Okay, I'm very happy with that. So that gets to dry now, like that, and the box I will set aside. So, believe it or not, that is it, I think. Hang on. There's one other, I think there might be one other, let's see here. Nope. It's if you look at the call-outs on the actual paint guide, it's disturbingly monotone. But interestingly enough, if you think about it, the bloody thing's in the water. It's being attacked by all kinds of corrosive elements from salt water. So I'm really getting excited about being able to just get in there and weather this and have some fun with it. It's going to be cool. So that takes care of that for now. I'm going to let that dry, and while I'm letting that dry, I'm going to take a minute to talk to you about the boat itself. So what I didn't do is film my tug of war with this hull, because there's nothing more boring than watching a grown man cry as he tries to carefully put these two halves together. Now, as I've always stated, I am a mediocre modeler, and I don't say that to be cavalier, but I say that, you know, every time I pick up one of these kits, I feel like I get better and better and better, and I'm learning something as I go along. So that's kind of fun. But the process of putting this hull together was relatively simple. You have these support columns that you glued to one side of the boat, and we watched me doing that, and then we let those dry. And the idea is then you introduce the other half, and the whole thing goes together in one harmonious marriage. Not true. So I had a bit of a tug of war, and I think basically what it is for me, I found that it was slightly warped, and you kind of gotta muscle with it a little bit, but it went together quite well. There's a little bit of creaking on this end, but for the most part, it's a pretty solid structure. And I used a combination of my Tamiya extra thin and my 10X, which I swear by. It's now called styrene tacket, but it was 10X7 for years. And you do have to be really careful. I use a very light brush because you know, this will melt the plastic together, and that's the idea, so that when you're holding the two halves together, you don't have to put too much pressure on it, and you get a couple of things. You get a capillary action that's going to bond it, and the second thing you get is you get a little bit of gap filling going on at the same time. Now this is it's pretty good. I've got a little bit of cleanup to do and some sanding to do, but for the most part this went together quite well. I have a little bit of a seam issue here, a little bit of here. But what I'm doing is, and what I have done is, I made myself some sprue goo. And what I've done is, and you guys know what sprue goo is, I take the extra thin Tamiya that I have left over in a few jars, I save it until I have enough to fill it up again. And then for this particular model, I'm using the actual plastic sprue from it, so that my color match on the raw plastic is perfect. And that creates my goo, and then I'm able to paint that into the various cracks and crevices which I'm doing to build up those surfaces. Now it does take a little bit to dry, but it's well worth it. And so anyway, she's come together, and she's looking pretty good. Now the bottom of this thing will never be seen, but I want to do it. I want to do it properly, so I know that it's going to need a little bit of cleanup, and that's what we'll do coming up next. What I have done is I have test fitted my top, or I should say the deck of this beast, and it drops into this little kind of shelf quite nicely. You can feel it click, and it drops in all the way around. So as soon as I'm able to get the stack painted and glued into this, and then I can mask it off, I'll be ready to seal up the top, and that's going to allow me to start finishing it, because the next thing you do after this, according to the instructions, is we are going to insert a couple of plates to the front here, which I'm going to do, and then that's it. And then we start on the conning tower itself, and we're going to be on the conning tower for a little bit, and then we'll go to the rear of the boat. And then we're going to pick up some of the other details on top. Not a lot going on. It really is going to be a sort of world of weathering, and that's what I'm excited about. But you do have to be careful here, because it needs to sit flush inside the boat, and you can see that there's a couple of areas where it sits proud, and you push one side in and the other side pops out. So what I recommend you do in that case is just find a place where it's flush, and then start gluing it very carefully, tacking it down and gluing it, and then working your way down one edge, and then turn it around, and then work yourself down the other end, and you should be in pretty good shape. Now, with my particular boat, I have a couple of nicks that I have to take care of. But I'm thinking now that probably the best way for me to do that is once I have actually put the deck on. So that is where we are, and it doesn't ask for anything else at this point. So I'm thinking that I'm in pretty good shape. I see the gun turrets go on these two pieces. Now, I have ordered from the Czech Republic. I found actually found a photo etch set that is supposed to be winging its way here. So I'm trying to hang on as much as I can. But I think a good portion of the, if not all of the photo etch, is applied sort of to the top and sides. The only issue is going to be those places that need to be sanded down. Not entirely sure I'll use it all, but I was curious about it. And again, because this is Sprueverse and I'm the test kitchen, I wanted to get it for you guys so that you were aware that it was out there. And we'll take a look at it. Hopefully it arrives in the next few days. We'll keep our fingers crossed. If not, I do think we're going to plow ahead. And maybe if I don't use it, I'll offer it to someone else in the group. So, okay. So the next step now is we're going to give my chimneys, the smokestacks, a little chance to dry before I get those inserted into the lower part of the deck here, and then that can obviously be masked off and protected before we paint the rest of it. And then the next thing I'm going to do, while you know, sort of to sort of while away the time, is I'm going to clean up this seam on the bottom and also on the top here before it gets a coat of primer. So that's where we are for now. Okay, in part 2 here of the build, the U-9 from Werk, I'm going to carry on with page 7, which wants us to put the conning tower, the beginning of the conning tower, together. Now, I will say that what I went ahead and did, and I sort of pre-painted the inside of this just to give it some shadows and some depth. I'm realizing now that you're not going to see a lot of this, but I think it's worth it just in case. And as I always say, even though there are parts to builds that we never will see, you and I will know that we did it and we did a nice job doing it. So here we go. I'm going to carry on here with the conning tower. Now what it wants you to do is essentially join these two parts together, which I'm going to attempt to do here on camera. Now I have test fitted everything and it seems to go together quite well, and what I like about this kit too is it appears as though you can actually plug and play with the conning tower, which is going to be very helpful actually when we go to paint and weather this. So let me just put this together like that, and see, make sure that that's all correct. And then it's interesting the way it's not coming together nicely, and I'm trying to figure out if that matters. I don't think it does, because I think there's going to be, I believe there's going to be something in front of it. Don't you love it? Anytime you try to do something on camera, this is what happens. You just get attacked by the gods and they don't want you to do it. It's kind of weird, but that's the way it works. Okay. The Tamiya thin is actually working quite well on this kit. Surprisingly enough, some kit plastics it doesn't like so much, but it's melting this pretty quickly. So that's pretty good. And as you guys know from the first episode, I made some sprue goo for this particular kit. I've used some of it, but not all of it. On just a couple of places where I needed to do some filling. I'd rather use styrene from the kit than try to patch it with putty. I don't know, for some reason I get a much better result. So conning tower is moving along here. This piece goes like such, drops in like this, and there's a ledge for that, like such. So what I'm going to do is turn this over here, and I'm going to just put a little bit of glue on the back here. Like that. And that completes that piece. Now I'm going to come around here, and I'm going to drop this piece in the top like this. And now what's on here is Styrores. It's Styrores primer, and I've done that just so as I've got a little bit of paint in there, because I find that sometimes when you are priming things like this, you can oversaturate. What I love about this Styrores primer is it really sucks into the details, and you're not going to be sort of struggling with trying to clean out panel lines. But obviously, if you're doing very light coats, you shouldn't have that issue anyway. And then so that takes care of that. And then what it asked us to do was paint this section on the inside of the first part of the conning tower white, and then it wanted us to pick out some of the detail with black. What I did, because I find it a lot easier for me with little details like this, is paint the whole thing black, then put your white on it, and then when that dries, you can take a little sanding stick very gently, and you can rub away the black, the white areas where you want it to show up black, and you can see you get that detail picked out quite nicely. And if that does show, we'll add some washes to that a little later if we need to. So now it wants us to put this piece together. I'm just checking to make sure we've got the correct fit, because this is a bit of a wonky, it's a very weird situation, but I think there's a piece that's going to go there and there, so I think that is correct. The pins are in, so we will ta-da! Okay. You know, sometimes I think to myself, it's pretty funny where we've come with the technology for building kits. It's pretty amazing when you think about it, where we were 20 years ago. We didn't have these capillary action glows. We just had to suffer with super glows and styrene glows. Can you imagine little dabs of it? How far we've come. It's pretty cool. Okay, so now it wants us to take this piece and drop it in this piece like such. Now I'm gonna just advance the ball here a second just to make sure that I'm not okay. So that completes 7, and then I'm going to drop this on here like this. Now curiously, there's an option here, which is B7. Here's the option, and I believe it's to have the conning tower open, which is kind of cool. I'm going to look at this for a second, see if I like this. It shows it dropping into this section right here on the boat, like that. And then I guess that then allows you to see I see, allows you to see that going down into the ship. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. So what I'm going to do now, before I make any rash decisions, is I'm going to carry on here and look for these parts. So this is B15, which is the very famous floor deck that everybody talks about. It has to be painted to look like wood. So that piece is probably going to have to be painted separately. And then B12, which is this piece here. There. And then C7, which is over here. C7 is here. Okay, so, oh, C41, hang about, C41 and C45. Okay, here's 41. We'll put that in, and 45 is 4. Of course. Why would it be after 44? I mean, why would it? You know, I mean, it's all good. Okay, so I'm gonna see here. Make sure this is all clean. Okay. Pretty nice. Now, let me just set that in. That went in quite nicely. And the reverse, it appears as though there's only one way this will go, so that's good. And that sort of takes care of those seams, which is nice. So that's all finished. And the detail on this is really cool, so it's going to dry brush beautifully, and that's good. Okay, so now curiously, I think this is for some antenna, and then there's a piece that's going to go on top of this. So clearly everything that I painted and put inside this bloody thing was a waste of time, but that's okay. Let's see here, that goes in there, and I think that allows us to hold on to some antenna or something like that. So we'll drop that bit in. That takes care of that. And then this deck piece sits right there. So I'm not going to, I have to paint this. So I'm going to paint this separately, and we'll set up to do that. And we'll do that together. We'll figure out how to paint that and make it look like wood together. So we'll do that. Then I believe this piece is gonna sit. How's that gonna sit? Oh. It always pays to assemble it correctly. So that's going to sit on there. Now I'm not gluing anything just yet, because I just want to make absolutely sure that I've not made any mistakes or I have any regrets. So presumably what this does is, if you glue this part on here, you get to look down. You get to look down the ship like that. I think, yeah, you're supposed to be able to see that ladder. Now, I'm here to tell you, I don't know you're going to see that. I don't know. Let me look here for a second. I do want to be absolutely sure I don't want it, because I don't want any regrets. And if it is a detail that you have a chance to really see, now I can see why. You do see in, you can see, I'm going to get you up close and personal here with PhilCam, just so that we can look at this together, but you do see, do you see? You can see those pipes in there. And so if that is open, you do see that detail. So I think I'm going to paint this up and actually install it. Which means I'm sure glad I haven't glued any of this together yet. So that is how this looks so far. That's how this looks so far. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint this up and detail it and glue it into place, and then we'll carry on and we'll get this deck looking spiffy, and then we can glue everything else into place. So that's coming together quite well, and there you go, starting to look like a U-boat.